Hi, my name is Richard Hoeg. This is another episode of Virtual Legality. If you aren't familiar with the series, we generally spend our time in this space talking about fun things, the business and law of video games, movies, television, pop culture, and all those things that you might otherwise enjoy and that I practice law surrounding and I like to talk about. This episode, however, is a little bit different. As you can see on your screen, we've got up a CNN article entitled Mob Invades Capitol. This is on January 6th, 2021, and is about a group of people that effectively assaulted the U.S. Capitol in the midst of the U.S. Senate counting up the election returns from the 2020 election, in which Joe Biden, the president-elect, defeated President Trump and is to be named president later on this month. As you probably are aware, whether you're in the United States or not, it is not standard for a mob of individuals to storm the seat of government during an election count or elsewise. And to be honest with you, I saw this news, and you can still see this news on Twitter or on social media, on Facebook, wherever it is you find yourself, trickling in. And it just honestly made me despondent. I have loved my state. I've loved my country. I've loved this country's people for as long as I've been alive. Some of you might find that jingoistic or overly patriotic, but I can still remember being in a car ride when I was young and my dad saying, you know why we're one of the luckiest families on earth? Because we got to be born and raised in America, and freedom and justice for all, and all these great and glorious and aspirational ideas, which at the end of the day are, of course, aspirational, things to strive for that human beings maybe can never perfectly achieve on this, our planet Earth, but still are worth seeking out, are worth dreaming about. And I remember as a kid getting that message, and maybe a lot of you have gotten a similar message in the various countries in which you've grown up. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having a certain pride in one's place. It only becomes wrong if it becomes that kind of jingoistic against all others attitude that unfortunately permeates a lot of our modern day political discourse. But I felt that pride when I was younger, and I never, ever would have imagined a day like today and the imagery that has come out of a day like today. Here you see armed guards with guns out with a barricaded door in front of one of the chambers of commerce. And unfortunately, I don't know the chambers well enough to know whether this is the House or the Senate, but it's just an incredible image. And it is by far not the only image that was released today. You see protesters actually in the rotunda, actually in those places where you could have gotten tours of the Capitol building not so long ago, raising fists and flags outside the Capitol. And if this is your first visit to my channel here in Virtual Legality, then you probably don't know. I'm a lawyer. I'm a corporate lawyer. I don't litigate. I don't fight over constitutional issues. When we talk about legal issues at a federal level in this space, sure, we talk about Supreme Court decisions and things of that ilk, but it's not my practice area. I'm not a politician. I'm not a state or government official. So I don't talk about these things a lot, but as a lawyer, any lawyer, you gain a certain amount of respect for the process, for the rule of law, for the old school House Rocks video of that cartoon bill learning how it's going to become a law that's going to rule and regulate society and the way in which we live our lives. And I 100% have that love of a rule of law, and you've probably heard it if you're not a first-time visitor to Virtual Legality in a number of my videos. I did a video talking about a similar U.S. government issue last year in Section 230 and all these various things. And I talked about a man for all seasons and the notion of not wanting to cut down all the laws just to get at your enemy. And unfortunately, that's what I'm seeing today. And it's been a long day. It's been a long year for those of us in the United States, obviously, and for those of you who are watching from around the world. But I think that pressure cooker has just dissolved the bonds of unity that so many Americans had, certainly in my youth, but I really don't think all that long ago. We've divided into camps, a tribalistic kind of notion, extremists on both sides, but extremism that should be condemned on both sides. And certainly actions like the ones we're seeing today, an assault on the seat of government in the United States, have to be condemned with the strongest possible language. You do not make societal change. You do not make political change in this fashion with effectively terroristic acts aimed at the seat of government. And absent a real revolution, the kind that results in a Declaration of Independence, whereupon a government has yoked its citizenry illegally and we must take up arms, this kind of thing can't be allowed in a civil society. This can't be allowed in the United States. It can't be allowed anywhere. One of the real special things about the United States and a lot of Western democracies, it must be said, is the peaceful transition, the bloodless transition of real power. And we're getting very, very close to a line in which that isn't going to happen. You've got people taking over the chambers of Congress. You've got folks stealing podiums. You've got folks otherwise engaged with riot police at our U.S. Capitol. And I can't remember, from a civics standpoint, ever being so despondent looking at a country that I love being in, and seeing the state that it's in, and going on social media and finding such a polarized atmosphere, even with this imagery. You've basically got the left and the right fighting tooth and nail about these kinds of things, the right justifying these actions because of whatever protests might have happened over this past year, and the left saying this is what you get from the rhetoric of President Trump and elsewise. And I don't necessarily disagree with any of them, but escalation is escalation. You only ever wind up making things worse. That rhetoric surely leads to this, just as equally as having protests and riots and burning cities down and taking over federal buildings, as was the case last year, leads to this as well. And I look at this and say, oh my God, what can be done? What can we do? Where can we go from this particular area? But in that despondency, I was sitting here thinking to myself whether or not I would even make a video talk about all these things with you all. And I apologize if this is not the kind of video that you're used to hearing in this space. And if you want to skip it, please feel free to go right ahead and do so. But I was thinking about this and I said to myself, I feel this way. I feel this despondent. And I have seen a few things in my years, and I have dealt with government regulatory agencies, and I've talked to senators and representatives and had all these experiences, and I still feel the republic kind of slipping away, and hearing these things on the news and NPR or CNN or the Fox or wherever it is that you get your news from, and thinking, man, is this it? Is this the fall of the republic? Are we looking at all of those kinds of things that we learned about in class way back when, whether it was the Roman Empire, maybe it was just movie class and you're thinking of Star Wars and the fall of that particular republic. Is this the fall? And it's very easy to look at things like this today and think that it is. I know I was feeling that myself. But that's not the name of this video. That's not the thumbnail I went with. And those of you that are regular viewers of Virtual Legality know this about me, I think, at this point. But I'm an inherent optimist. That's not a usual combination for a corporate lawyer, I have to admit. But I still love this country. And more importantly than loving this country, I love the ideals that it represents. I love the concept, the aspirational goal, and that, yeah, you can have all the critiques that you want about whether this goal was realized in the 18th century or the 19th or the 20th or now in the 21st. But the aspirational goal of liberty, of freedom, of justice, of being able to pursue your own ends, of equality, of having a society in which each individual was allowed to pursue their own dreams and hopefully realize them without kind of the strictures of an upward force, whether that's government, whether that's the church, whatever it might be. When you look back at the centuries of human history, I believe in that dream. I believe in that America. Maybe it's a lowercase a at this point in time. But I wanted to say to you that are listening to this, that are watching this, and there's a thing on social media that goes around that says effectively, I don't know who needs to hear this, but, and then whatever inane thing is said. Maybe it's a recipe for pudding cups. Maybe it's that the newest Game of Thrones is on. Whatever it might be. I don't know who needs to hear this, but that notion of an America that will survive any or all of this, of guns out in the chambers of Congress, of people hanging off the balcony in the seat of law in the United States, of people taking over every bit of what feels like normalcy in the ordinary American way of life. This is not the fall. This is not the end of liberty. This is not the end of freedom, of the dream of what America could have been, of what so many democracies and free societies in the globe want to be. And I want people to understand that. I want people to understand that everything looks bad. Everything looks bad today. Bad, bad, bad. Stay safe wherever you're located. This may or may not wind up being limited to the Washington, D.C. area. Various state capitals have their own protests going on today. I hope and pray that they are all peaceful in nature. And this might get worse before it gets better. But it will get better. I don't want to just serve you up with platitudes. It's always darkest before the dawn, all this good stuff. It's going to be dark. It is dark right now. I think it's very easy to look at these images, and if you have a love of this country or even the dreams which it represents, to look at them and tear up and want to cry. I understand that completely. But this is not the fall. This is not the fall of the dream of what America could have been. This is not the fall of what we can be, as long as people still believe in striving for liberty and equality and justice and freedom and all of these great things, whether or not it's in the United States or America with a capital A or any of those things. This is a blip in the human history. This is not all that we are ever going to be. This is not the fall of the United States as a dream. We might go through some tough times here. It certainly looks like things are likely to get worse before they get better. But at the end of the day, I still believe in all of this stuff. I still believe in America. I still believe in these qualities. And government isn't us. Government isn't the people. The foundations of our infrastructure, of the institutions which we support, even if they are to be upheld and we love them and they protect rule of law and everything else, they aren't the people. Government is from the people, not people from the government. And so at the end of the day, I know it's so hard. I know many of you might get to the end of this video, think, wow, that's pretty pointless, Rick. But I was thinking this myself, how easy it is to grow despondent when you see these kinds of things, how easy it is to rend your garments and gnash your teeth and say, there is no hope for us. When are we going to buy all the guns and defend ourselves? When is the Civil War coming? And I just wanted to say to at least one person that's listening to this on a podcast or watching this video that things will get better, that there is dawn, that the dreams that were America at one point in time won't die just because of the extremism that you can see right now and of the completely unacceptable actions that you're seeing as part of this election certification process today. So I apologize to any of you that were expecting something else from Virtual Legality. I already did deliver a video today, and I apologize even further. I didn't intend this to sound like I was running for president or anything, but it was a message that I very much wanted to give. It was thoughts that I very much wanted to have, and optimism is a tremendous way to live. So don't be despondent. Obviously, follow the news, follow what's interesting to you. Stay safe when you watch all this stuff, but know that at the end, this isn't the fall of the world. This isn't the fall of even the country that you might love if you live here in the U.S. like I do. But it might just be a little bit of darkness before we once again get back to the dreams that we all had. Thank you so much for listening.